Daddy, they want you to tell some stories about when you were a kid. Can you tell some
Okay,
stories when you were a kid?
the best I can remember, I mean, I'll tell them. I was born in Beaumont, North Carolina, and we moved to Spring Hope when I was about probably 2 or 3, because my sister was born in Spring Hope, and I had a brother born in Spring Hope, Pete, and I was the 5th child. I had 4 brothers ahead of me, and we all, of course, as brothers, you know, get in fights and wrestle, and then we would go to the woods, play in the creek, and we had one behind our house, and we'd climb poplar trees and, you know, little slim tree. Used to swing backwards and forwards like Tarzan. And then, of course, then sometimes they would snap and fall. And my brother I had 2 brothers that was real close to me. One of them was born in January I think it was the 27th, and the other one was born December the 30th, the same year, December the 27th. I was born in 29 of September. And my dad he was always looking for a better house. And so he would move a lot. And of course, I don't remember all those moves, but I do remember 3 or 4 of them, because we lived, as we said, across the railroad track, the cemetery. And we lived up there. That's when my youngest brother was born. I mean, yeah, Pete was born there. And then we moved back down to what we call Spring Hope. And we stayed in one house up on top of the hill. There was 2 houses up there. We lived in one that belonged to her cousin. And then there was a bigger house just right across the street from him on the highway. And so we moved into it, and we stayed in it probably the longest. And then we moved down, what would say, down to the bottom of the hill. I don't remember who owned that house, but I do remember the rent was $7 a month. And that's when my 2 brothers went in service. And then Dad found him a job in Greensboro. And so he moved to Greensboro. Oh, I was trying to think, it was probably 39 probably. And because I was about 10. And we lived on Warren Street. And that's when I met T.W. Shore and Will Pascal. We were the 3 Musketeers back in those days. We'd done everything together just about. And of course, me and T.W. was closer than I was with Will, and he was a lot closer. And I stayed at his house some, and his sisters was my sisters. And so I knew the family pretty well, and your grandfather wasn't a very nice man. He was good as gold when he was sober.
So you didn't like that? No.
But he was a good carpenter. And I went to work for L.B. Gallimore, and that's who he was working for. And he sent me to work with Mr. Shore because I knew him. And I stayed there and, you know, I was his handyman. I went and got whatever he needed. He was the best finished carpenter. We was working in a church, putting handrails, baseboard, and trim and stuff all in that church. They had already built it, and then we was finishing it up. And I worked with him, I don't know, probably a long time. And then all of a sudden he got on one of his benders. And he was bad about taking anything he could get his hands on out of the house to sell it. And I remember Evangeline had got married, and her and her husband was staying there at the house with her mom and dad. And he took some things belonged to him, and they tried to find it, you know. And he would, all he'd get him was just one shot of liquor was all he'd get for whatever he got most of the time. And so, like I say, TW didn't always have money, and somehow or another I done chores, and I got paid for my chores. And me and him always went to the movies on Saturdays. And I remember one time my daddy wanted to go see, what was that name of that movie? It was, my mind just went blank. But it was a long time ago. But it was a war movie of when, what was I know the character, he was in Tennessee. He was raised in Tennessee. And he was a good shot, you know, and he drank and all, and he got saved. And they drafted him in the army. And he captured a whole platoon of Germans all by himself.
Audie Murphy.
Huh?
Audie Murphy.
No, it wasn't Audie Murphy. This is, I'm trying to think who was it. It was a Western that played the part. He played cowboy movies because I remembered him in them. But he was a good actor. He played in that. And
It's the character he
so
was
T.W.
playing.
didn't have no money to get in it. And I told him to meet me at the theater. And so he got there about the time we did, and I gave him the money for him to come in. We all sat together. Dad, well, you know, because like I say, he was in my house about as much as I was at his. And then when I moved to Greensboro, and let's see, and I think I was in the 5th grade, 6th, something. 4th, it might have been the 4th grade. But anyhow, I was sick all that time, you know, and I had to go repeat the grade again. And when I was in the country now, they didn't teach you very well. They had us working in a shop, learning how to make things and do things and stuff instead of teaching you in the classroom. And but then when I got to Greensboro, I never was a very good reader. And I didn't like spelling very much. And but I liked football. And so when I got to junior high school, the coach took a liking to me, and he helped me, you know, in the things that so I learned my plays. I learned everybody else's. I could play any position. And so I usually played right tackle all the time. And so now that was the rough, you know, I was just as rough as the rest of them. And when I was in the 7th grade, I had to tackle the 9th grade guys. They were bigger and heavier than I was. I didn't weigh but about 120 probably at the most. And so I'd tackle them because of my brothers. I played football with them all the time, you know, baseball. And so I took and learned how to tackle then. And then I tackled a guy boy, he liked to knock me out. I tackled him, and the coach said, now that's what I mean. That's what I want to tackle, and said, let's do it again. I done it about 4 times, and I was about wore out. The guy was bigger than I was, and it was hurting. And then he was laughing at me because he knew that I was, but he just was trying to teach me, that you had to be tough if you're going to play. And I didn't make but the very next year I was on the first team. And that's when a boy jumped in the middle of my back. He weighed 180 pounds. And I couldn't play. And it was, and then when I got in high school, a boy done the same thing in high school and jumped in my back. And that like to done me in. And then I took and then about that time, TWE went to the Navy. And of course, and then I finished that year out and I got a job with A&P. That's when I met your mother. She was a teenager, and she was going around, and I started pea-pieing with her, and got every time her mama and her would come in there, and she would run hide behind her mama, all that kind of things, she was bashful like. And then I didn't see her no more, and I left A&P, and I went to Germany. And then when I come back, TW had married her. And and that's when I was telling him, that how I done it. But when I got married, me and Hilda went to South Carolina and got married. We're going to get married in the church. But then her dad wouldn't sign the marriage certificate. He thought she was too young. But then he changed his mind and went up there the next day. And that day we had made plans to go to South Carolina. My brother happened to have the day off. So her mama and my mama went with us. And so Mr. Lane didn't like me very much when I come back. But then when I went overseas, he had changed. His heart had changed a little. Because I got to come home I didn't get about 3 times probably to come home after, my furloughs. And we got married. I had 7 days, I think. And then I think I didn't come home. I think I come home on Thanksgiving. No, it wasn't Thanksgiving. It was Easter. And then I don't think I've seen her in them. We was on maneuvers a little while there in the hot weather at Fort Bragg. And a friend of mine was in the Army with me that we went to church. And his daddy brought Hilda and his daughter and all, and the family so they could see Max. And they brought her with her. And I got to see her then. And I don't think I've seen her anymore. But one night we was getting ready on maneuvers, and we'd caught a taxi and came home for about an hour and a half. And then we had to go back because time they drove. And then I had guard duty. And so I had one boy to pull my guard duty till I got back. When I got back, it was time for me to go on guard duty. So they tried to pick the guys from North Carolina to do the guard duty and all because we could stand the heat better than those guys from North. because they didn't know how to, never been in a hot, muggy place. But, and then we had Debbie in 56. And then I was working with A&P the first time. Then I had already just changed jobs when Hilda was pregnant with her. And and because I remember I had, I don't remember where I sprung my ankle or broke my ankle. But anyhow, I had stepped on something at work and twisted my ankle. And I had weak ankles anyway. And, and then Susan come along, and then I had a hernia, had to have a hernia operation, and so I was home a couple of days before I went back to work, and so I just had to, like I say, it would seem like something always happened to me, because I broke my ankles. I broke that one 3 times, and I broke that one 3 times, and when I broke that one, the doctor told me it was 2 centimeters. And then I broke my elbow riding Debbie's bicycle when me and my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, and he was a minister, and I think he was in Indiana then. I don't think he might, but he went to California later and was minister there for a long time. In fact, their family still lives in California, but he passed away about 2 years, 3 years ago, something like that. He was 91, so I was about a year older than he was. But so well, I'm done. I got a brother and a sister living, and then but my 4 brothers has all passed away. My oldest brother was 80 when he passed away, and then the 2 that was close to me, Clinton, he had cancer, and it was all over him. He was one that was just 3 years older than me. And
Take a sip of water, Daddy. You're talking a lot. I got it.
as you notice, my fingers, the nerves in my fingers are dead, and so I can't use them very much, and then I have to watch what I do with them. And then when I set that cup down, if I don't watch my hands, it'll be on them. I don't feel it. So I might rake the cup right back. I have dumped them right on top of me. That's when you kind of move kind of fast trying to get them up, and you can't get a hold of the cup. So it makes it kind of rough. But anyway, and we moved from Warren Street in Greensboro to we bought a house in Guilford College area over there. It was on, can't even
Are you talking about us?
Us, yeah.
We moved from Langley Street to Ainsworth near Guilford College. That's us. That's not you. You said Warren Street, but we didn't live on Warren. We lived on Langley.
Yeah, it was Langley. It was Warren that I lived on before I got married. Of course, Mom and Dad had done moved in another house in Bessemer. And I, after the kids were born, and of course, me and Hilda, we used to take the kids to the mountain, and we would take vacation to wherever we could get the cheapest rates, and because we didn't have a whole lot of money. And I tried to always play with them and things when we was at the coast and all. Except one time, me and my older brother went fishing. I met him down at the Outer Banks, and we went fishing, and I didn't get to. I told him I'd play with him the next day, and the next day, with the wind was blowing, and it was too cold to even be out, so we didn't. I didn't get to play with them, and they didn't particularly like that much. I know that Susan didn't, but we survived, and we built us a house. The kids, when they had got married, wanted us to move closer to them, and so we bought some land on
Racine. Racine.
Yeah, Racine Road, and it was what was it? 9 miles.
I don't remember, Daddy.
I don't think.
It was
Because it was
partway
17 from Langley Street where we lived. And then when we moved in Guilford College, it was in 67. And we took the kids, of course, after they got married there. And so then that's when they was wanting us. So me and Hilda looked for some land, and we happened to run across it was a place on Racine Road, and it was upon a hill, and it had a creek run down beside it. And so we made an offer, and they wanted a little bit more, so then we made a counter offer, and they took that because we told them we'd pay them cash. And so we could get money off in our house. I could borrow that and paid for that. And then when I sold my house, I got the money, and paid the bank back right quick. And so we moved in a townhouse. And so that's where I was living when we moved into here. So but I think we got within a half a mile between whatever the mileage was to her house or to Susan's. She was a half a mile further. But then, so the kids could come, and we lived, like I said, on a hill, and the kids, when it snowed, they would play that. They could slide down with pasteboard and just slide down the hill. And I bought 2 sleds so they could have sleds to ride on, but they just soon to ride on, because 3 or 4 of them could get on a piece of cardboard. I had some big boxes, and they were sliding down the hill on them. And so I just, and Kenneth, and the way I met him, A.W., Hilda's brother, I run around with him when I was 16. And his brother was older than he was. And he run around with Earl, my brother that was older than me, a lot. And then I started to, he knew some girls, often we double dated a time or 2 with him. And so that's the way I got to know R.B. And then when Kenneth come along, I can remember it was him and Debbie and Susan was down at Mr. Langley's. He had a lake down on 62, and had wasp nest. A yellow jacket nest was in the ground, and Susan stepped on it. And they, Kenneth and Debbie run and left her over there, and she was down there hollering. And
she went home.
So me and R.B. took off to go over to see what was going on, And I jumped the fence, and R.B. had to move the wire to get over it, but I jumped it. I don't know how, but I jumped over barbed wire fence. And I got over and picked her up, and she was just covered in yellow jackets. I took my hand and was raking them off before I picked her up so I could get my arms around her legs. And then I was walking, picking them off on her socks. She was in her Easter outfit. And so she'd been stung so many times. Me and RB took off he knew how to get there. In fact, it was in my car. I had a 50 Buick. No, it was what was that? For Mercury. It was a Mercury I had first, a green Mercury. And we got in that thing. We took off and went going to Pleasant Garden to the doctor. And on the way down there, we had a flat tire. And it took us less than 6 minutes to change that tire. While I was taking the tire off, I got my jack, and jacked it up. And while RB was finished jacking it up, I was taking the lugs off. I had that tire off time he got it, and we put the other tire on. And he put that in the trunk, and I had the lugs already tightened. And then we jumped back in the car and got to the doctor. And he wasn't in his office, so there was another doctor in Pleasant Garden. So we took off then to Cone Hospital. Not a cop nowhere to lead you, you couldn't. And we got to the hospital, and there were 4 or 5 of them riding around. I said, no, where were you at when I needed you? But they said she was kind of in a daze from all the stings. But they made some bad sores, though, on her legs for a while. But I know, I forgot how many stings they found on her, but all of them didn't sting her, because I grabbed it and just pushed them off with my hand, just gobs of them. And then the next day, Mr. Lane went and poured gas in the hole, burned them. But, and then I kind of got a little aged, and I lost my balance when I worked. And I walked with a cane for a couple of years or so. And then I lost the rest of my balance, and I had to walk with a walker. And I fell a lot, and because things I'd done, you would just make one step, and didn't have no balance. So if you didn't have something to hold to, and a walker's not very heavy, and I fell a whole lot. And the last time I fell, I was in the kitchen washing dishes, and I had my crock pot. I had cooked beans for supper that night, and I had already got all the beans out of the crock pot. I picked it up, and it's heavy, and I went to set it down, and I started falling, and I had to trying to find a place I could set it. And I put it in the sink, and I couldn't get to the sink. I was going too fast. So I turned, and then I twisted, and I fell on this left arm. And I still can't lift my arm up too high. And I told Debbie and them then, I said, I can't take care of Mama. I says, I can't even take care of my own self, so it's time to go ahead and get us somewhere. And so they got her in about 4 days before I came here. And, but I became a Christian a long time ago. Back when I think I was 19. But I think the best I can remember, I was baptized when I was about 4 years old in the Tar River down in Spring Hope. Because I remember my mother and a bunch of ladies was at the river, and the preacher was baptizing people, and then I got baptized. But at 4 years old, you know, I know the Lord's been with me a long time, and I done things I wasn't proud of. And then when I was 19, I got saved again, and then somehow or another, I don't know, you know, in my work, I was around different people, and, you know, wasn't all Christians. And then they had a lay witness mission come to church, and I got saved. That's when I told the Lord, I said, it's me. You take me. I said, because I'm not, I said, I got so much sin I don't even want to tell them to you, and I know you know. And he took them all away from me. And then, since then, I've got where I read the Bible more, and I studied it, and I still try to read it every day. Now, there was a while when I was in hospital, of course, wasn't strong enough to hold the Bible up, much less read. And I didn't have it with me neither. And so then when I come back, I started trying to catch up. And so I read it every day in my devotions. And I keep it in that container so I can get to them. There for a while, they kept them on the table overnight. I'd have to get somebody to get them for me. And so I decided then when I told her I needed something I could put stuff in that I needed, and then she brought that big thing, and I filled it up right quick. But the books make it heavier. But
Daddy, tell us stories about when you used to work for you. I don't know if it was your grandfather or your uncle on the farm. You'd go spend the summers.
oh, yeah, well, I went back every summer to the farm. My grandmother still lived on the farm, and I had uncles lived on the farm. I stayed 2 years with my grandmother. Then I stayed, I think it was about 4 years with my uncle, priming tobacco, working in it. And I know one year when my uncle, of course I usually was what they called sled, because you had wooden sleds and you would fill them full of tobacco. And then my job was to take the sled from the barn to the field and bring the one from the field back to the barn so they could put the tobacco on a stick. And then we hang it up when we got through with getting it all primed and on sticks. And then I somehow or another, I was always one on the bottom. So all the sand and all the dirt and stuff, and it was sticky and black. I used to take my hands at lunchtime, and I would get all the black, it's like tar, and I made me a tar baby out of them. That's how much I got off of my hands at lunchtime one summer. And I had boys that we run around with. My uncle had an old T model, and it would run, but it needed tuning, you know. And so one Sunday morning, me and a bunch of boys got in it so we could push it. And one of them could drive, so he got into the drive, and my uncle was sitting on the front running board down there, but they had the hood half uncovered, and he was trying to get it tuned as we rode down the road. And then the thing that knocked off, we didn't have no gas, so we had to push it all the way back. Oh, man, that was back in the good old days. But there was lots of things I'd done, riding bicycle in the rain, and we had a flood it rained so much, and the water was that much higher over the bridge down below where my uncle stayed. And the guy that he sharecropped with, us boys, one Sunday afternoon, I think it was, he was about half drunk, and he took us, he said, let's go see how deep the water is. And he took us and got right on top of the bridge and opened the door, and that water just rushed in. I had to open the other door so it could run out. And then he drove on past it, and dried his car out and shut the doors, and then would come back. I mean, he was crazy. But I didn't ever drink. That was one thing. I tasted it when I was about, I was probably about 10 or 11, something like that. We was staying on Warren Street, the best I remember. Or we could have had done moved over on Bellevue, I don't know. But I remember Mama had a cold, and she would pour a little bit at nighttime so she could sleep. They said it helped her to sleep. And I tasted it, and boy, it went down, but it come back up about as fast as it went down. And I said, I didn't like that. And I tasted a beer, and I said, if I want rotten apples, I can eat rotten apples, but I don't want nothing to drink it. And so I never did buy any liquor. I never did drink it. I drank a little wine, but not that much. Because we bought some one New Year's at the meal time, And but it was, we sipped on it. We'd been to a hockey game. We always went to hockey games when they had them in Greensboro. And we used to go to them about every time they were there. And I know when the kids were little, they used to go with us. And then, of course, when they got married, and we played a lot of cards with different people and learned to play bridge with one couple, and we got to play with them more on weekends, and we'd spend half the night playing bridge, and trying to get the game over with or something, and but then I don't know what happened. They quit calling, so I didn't call them neither. So it was just, I hadn't seen him since then, I don't think. But they were just new Christians that had been at the church, and we got with them and had time and prayer and stuff. But
Did you and RB get in a lot of trouble?
Well, he liked to play cards. He could, the luckiest guy I ever seen in my life. He had all the salesmen when he was running that store, and I worked for him. I run the store while they played cards. And I don't know how much you won. I never did ask them, but I know them guys would stay all day. And then maybe every once in a while, one of the salesmen go over and call a customer and see what they needed, and then he would write it down, and so he could deliver it the next day. But I like cards, but I never did like play poker that much. We played penny poker when I was a kid with my dad and brothers and stuff. But they played something else. I forgot what it was that my older brothers learned while they was in the Army. But when I was playing, they played, what was it that we played? Crazy Eight?
I don't know.
It might have been that we played a lot when I come back. And I think it was Crazy 8. Something like that anyway. And then I learned, I can't even remember the other game that we used to play that was...
You and Mama used to play canasta. Canasta with people.
Yeah,
other
well, we
couples.
played canasta.
I never did learn that one.
And we played,
I played that.
what was that game that you played with? It wasn't go to jail or something. And that one, Monopoly. Wasn't Monopoly, but it was that.
Oh, we used to play Rummy Cube, and with the kids, we played Phase 10 and Uno.
Uno. I think it was Uno that we played with RB and Ann. Ann wasn't a very good card player. She couldn't never.
Liked to cheat, didn't she?
Huh?
She liked to cheat, didn't she?
Yeah, she couldn't win, and we would do everything to so she would win, and so how much she ended up losing anyway. But she, I've been over there, and RB, I don't know why, I went to the store for something, and he wanted me to go down and get something at the house, and Annalie being there playing by herself, trying to learn the game. I thought, boy, but she just never could get the hang of it.
I don't think it was Uno at that time.
But I remember him, Kenneth and Robin had Christmas at their house one year. I don't remember if that was in the house that y'all built then, or was it?
Monette Road.
Yeah, Lynette Road. I was thinking that's where it was. But I couldn't think of the name until you said it. But, and of course they didn't have but the one girl then. And then we, and Karen and Darrell, and I think Carol had one girl, a boy, I think first. But I never have met all that one. She got one boy, the youngest one. I never had seen him yet. And of course, I ain't seen him since the funeral or something. I think when Robin's mama passed away, I think the last time I seen any of them. Because I know he wanted to go to the grave site of Grandpa's first wife, Mr. Langley's first wife. It was an old church down in
Siler City.
No, it ain't that far down.
Liberty.
Oh, clap. Do you remember what it was, Kenneth? That little town? My mind right now is blank.
It wasn't as far down as Siler City. It
Huh?
wasn't that far down.
It wasn't too far out of Greensboro. It was kind of on a back road. Somehow or another. Oh, it just don't come to me.
Staley?
Huh?
Was it Staley?
Nuh-uh.
Liberty?
It wasn't far from Liberty. What was it? It's just a little small town. There was a church there. It was a Quaker church there that they went to. And she was buried there. She died at childbirth. And so that's when he moved to Greensboro. Oh, actually, I don't know where he came to Greensboro, went to Summerfield, but then he had bought a place out there, and of course, and they doing the compression, and I think he about lost it, and then he came to Greensboro, and he had a house, and he built him a workshop in the back. He was a carpenter, and he worked on the Jefferson Standard Building. He said he put the top on that, and it was kind of sleeting. He had a rope tied around him on the peak, and then he put all the roofing on. Nobody else wouldn't go up there. They paid him good, so he said, I couldn't outdo with the money, you know. Said I had to, but he was kind of daring. He was a little short, fat guy. He wasn't, but he was rough.
Had a temper too, didn't he?
Huh?
He had a temper too, didn't
Yeah, he had the lanely temper. Him and RB used to get into it. Oh, boy. And then AW and RB used to get into it. I'd be over at the CAW, and I came home with him, actually, because he had a little old car. And they would get into more arguments. Sometimes they'd get to wrestling a little bit. AW was a boxer, Golden Glove, and the Golden Gloves won a couple of years, and had the quickest knockout and won one of his events. And the guy was an Army guy that he was going to box. And they then told him that he had but pretty rough, and it knocked about all his components out. And he scared the guy would go hit him, and he said he threw the first punch and knocked him out. And so by doing that, he got the fastest knockout, and then I think he won his event. I think he beat everybody that he fought. He got beat up on sometimes, but not every time. And sometimes he stood straight up all the time when he boxed. And he never did, weave and wob like other boxers do and things, but he just stood straight up. And he just wait for his opening, and he had a hard hit. Because I sparred with him a couple of times, and he knocked me down, but it didn't knock me out, but it just knocked me down. But he was, we had a lot of fun back in those days. Of course, I know people now that boys, all they want was cars. Everybody wanted a car when they got 16, and so it wasn't like it was when we come along. You rode a bicycle or walked, catch a trolley or something. And I know I walked a lot all over Greensboro, and I rode bicycles all over it. When I had a bicycle, because I saved my money up. My boss man had a Hawthorne he wanted to get rid of, and I bought that from him. And it had knee action springs in the front, but you couldn't jerk it up because the thing would come off the wheel. Front wheel would just come right off of it. And I'd done it one time to jump over a little hill, and I ended up landing down, sliding down the hill. So it wasn't fun.
Let's see. What can I ask?
So,
How about when you were working at Guilford Dairy?
well, I helped, that was during the war, right at the end of it maybe. But we lived across the street on Warren Street. And my dad loves ice cream. And I was helping them at night put the ice cream in those half-gallons. And then I worked in the dairy part and during the day. And me and the boss man was putting ice cream up because a lot of others didn't want to work all that much. Because all I was working was part-time out of school, you know. And then that night, and I used to, when we get through, and just before I'd always get a half-gallon. That ice cream is soft. And so when it come out of the thing, I'd just cut it off and put the top on it. And my dad would be sitting on the front porch. It'd be hot, and he'd be sitting on the front porch. I'd give him that half-gallon ice cream. He'd eat every bit of it. He loved ice cream. He used to take us to Yum Yum and buy hot dogs, and then he would buy us all a cone of ice cream that was with him, because the rest of it would have melted before we got back home. And so I used to go with him most of the time. And I don't remember who else was with him, but I know I eat a lot of Yum Yum ice cream. I like that stuff.
How did you meet Mama?
At church.
At church?
Yeah. I knew her by being run around with A.W., but she wasn't till she was about 16. She passed out in the choir. She got hot and fainted, and you know, for a second or two, and they helped her and fanned her a little bit, and she got all right. And that's the first time I really noticed her. And so I told A.W., I said, Hilda, she'll date me. And he said, well, you go out there, that's yourself. And so I asked her, and we went on our first date. We went, there was 2 other couples. We went and played miniature golf. And so that was our first date. And then, of course, I got where I dated. We'd catch the trolley and go see a movie or something. And because I didn't have no car.
Yeah, I never did have a car.
Do what?
Never did have the car.
Hilda would get her daddy's car once in a while when she turned 16. And we would, you know, go places with her daddy's car. But I think after we got married, I think we bought a 50 Mercury. It was, and it was probably one of the best cars, but it had been totaled almost. And the guy fixed it up. And I bought it, you know, it wasn't too expensive. And I didn't know it had been that because it was bad on tires. And that was the only thing was the matter with it. It would wear out a set of tires in no time. And because I started buying, I was buying recaps for a long time, and they wouldn't last no time. The recap would either come off on them or they'd wear it out. And then I think we bought a Ford. I don't even remember what model that thing was. We bought it, and it was, Daddy said, that transmission ain't right. They could all hear a noise in it. I never did hear it. Of course, I was losing my hearing then, I reckon, because I messed up this ear. I went deaf in the left ear. When I was when I was in service, I couldn't hear for about a month. I walked between the two Hollisters, and I was the ammo carrier. And I was going, and the minute I got right between the two of them, I heard them say, fire. And back in those days, you were supposed to just lock your jaws, and that would kind of help shut off your ears, you know. But I didn't even have time to do that. And I went to the infirmary, you know, to the Army base there, and they said, "Oh, it'll be better later." So you'll probably a year to come back. And it did. About a month later, I think I began to hear better. And then when I was about 50, it began to fade, and I couldn't get where I couldn't hear it all out of it. And that's when I got my first hearing aid. I was about 55. Because then the way it is, I got two now, but this one transferred the sound to the other one. The Army, that was the only thing they would give me, because that was the only thing that really that I needed when I told them when I went up there, because there was nothing the matter with me other than that, you know. And we done a lot of hiking and diving in snow. And Germany, the snow would be up to your knees, especially when we was on maneuvers. Got up in Grafenwar, it's up in the mountain area, and it's close to Russia too. We'd be on maneuvers, and we'd take field glasses and look over toward Germany, and they'd be having field glass looking at us. And we'd throw our hands up way, they'd way back. But they were just like us. They didn't know what was going on either. So, but they always thought Russia was going to get back into the Korean War. That's when I was in, and that's how I went with TW on the ship. I was with him 7 days, and I got seasick, I think about the first day out, and I stayed, and I was working with him during the day, and but I never did, you know, go get breakfast or something other. I'd get prepared to go up there, and somebody would upchuck before I got there, and I'd knock them down trying to get back to my bunk, because the longer as I was laying down, I wouldn't seasick. And so I'd done that about 2 days, and one boy was going. I said, if you make it through to the mess hall, bring me a boiled egg, because they had boiled eggs and toast. And I said, bring me a piece of toast back. And he did, and that was the first thing I ate about two days. And then TW told me, he says, why don't you come on down to the, one of the boys he run around with, he run what they call stores on the ship, and he sold ice cream. And so we went down there, and while he was cleaning up and everything, and he would give us ice cream. And so I ate ice cream, and I forgot what it was. I got sick one night because I ate one meal. I ate 2 or 3 meals with the Navy, and then they stopped that because I was an Army man. I wasn't a Navy man, and they put me in that. But they had special meals, you know, for the ones that worked. And so I could still get up and have breakfast or something with him a lot of times. And but I know when I walked on the ship and I seen the name on it, you know, because I'd been writing them letters and stuff. And I said, Claire, I said, that's the ship TW's on. And so while I got on there, as soon as I first Navy person I seen. I asked him, I said, you know T.W. Shore? He said, yeah. And the MP said, no, should you stay in line? Said, go on, but they're your bunk. And so the next morning, I went back and another guy was standing there, and I asked him if he knowed him. And he said, yes, said, come on. And the MP said something to me that, you know, that I couldn't go. He said, he's with me. And so I followed him, and that's how I got down there. T.W. was laying in his bunk, and I think he was in about the second bunk. I can't remember now, but it seemed like it was. And I walked in and said, T.W. Shore, boy, he knew my voice, so, you know, and he jumped up, boy, and we had a good time hugging one another. So had a lot to talk about then, because we hadn't seen one another, and it'd been over a year or two. Because I was going to join the Navy, but then he had already done join, and I said, there ain't no way I would be lucky enough to get with him. I'll be with something else. So I just decided to just wait, and then while I was waiting, I got drafted. So it was something else. But I got on his ship Thanksgiving night. We eat Thanksgiving Day on his ship, on that transport. And the next morning, we got on a train. We rode all day long. And then that night, because they'd pull over because it was, other trains had right of way, so we had to get on another track to let it pass, and then we back up and get back on track and go. And it took us about, I think it was about 14 hours to get to the base I was going to be at. It was, it was headquarters, but it was another part of Germany. And the train ride, you was like in a boxcar to start with, and just, I don't remember, it seemed like we was standing up. And then we got on one that had seats, but it had no sides on it, and the smoke from the train would just be black the next day. And of course, when I got to Germany, that's what they used, those kerosene, big old heaters. I don't know why my throat's so tickling this morning. Seems like there's something down there tickling it. And but we used to, everybody would wake up the next morning. We had guys supposed to watch it and not let it run out of oil, but they wouldn't. They'd fall off to sleep, and everybody would be black. Well, everything that was out under the cover, if your hands was out under the cover, your face, you get up and everybody was black with soot. And we'd have to get up, and then when you go to, think your hands was dirty, you know, and you go to washing your hands and have to look in the mirror and just, oh, and you have to wash your face. And they put you on in a big truck to take you to showers. They had showers set up where you cross base or something other when we was in Germany. And so we'd go to the shower, you get cleaned, then on the way back, all that dust, you get nasty the time you got back. So sometimes I said it wasn't hard work, but of course, if you had clothes on, you know, that didn't get dirty, your hands and face. But I was in with Will Pascal. He was in the Army. He got drafted the same time I did, or shortly thereof. But he was in, I was in the 29th Division, and he was in the 7th. And he was in, he somehow he got working with headquarters, because he was coming home at just about Thanksgiving. That when I was already overseas at Thanksgiving, he said was thumbing to go home that weekend, and he caught a ride with a young couple, and they had a wreck, and they towed them out, and they all went down the mountainside, and he broke an arm. That's all he done, and so he was in the hospital for a while, and then they fixed his arm, and so he stayed at home. A lot of times they let him take time off until time for him to be rechecked, check his arm, x-ray it and whatever. And he would go back, and then he got shipped over to Germany. And we'd already been over there probably 5-6 months before he got over there. And I told him he just come for a vacation. But he worked with headquarters, and so he could write his own pass. And he'd get off, and he was in, I think he was in Frankfurt, Germany. It seems like that's where it was. And you had to catch the train and come to Stuttgart. And then you'd have to catch a bus to come out to the camp where we was at in Heilbronn. And that was the most tore up town that I seen while I was over there. Had a lot, it was an industrial town, and they had lots of factories and stuff, so it got bombed bad. And they had a lot of pill boxes all around it. And the only way they could blow them up was blow them up from the inside. Them things was 14 inches thick, probably. They were real thick. Top, had a bottom of concrete, and they just had a little place to crawl through to get in it. And it was kind of down in the ground, like, and you just slide down to get in it. And they had their little slots all the way around it to do the shooting and everything. But it was, of course, I didn't see no shooting while I was over there. We practiced all the time. They was forced to stay ready. They liable to call you, they call alerts, and they call one at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 in the morning. You better have your stuff packed and ready to go. And we usually kept a duffel bag already packed with what you thought you'd need, your sheets and your sleeping bag. Well, I always like to put a sheet inside of my sleeping bag because it kept you warmer. And your shoes, the extra shoes and stuff, and they would ship you out, and you didn't know where you was going. And they said, well, I would take you 40 miles away from camp. No, so you wouldn't walk back. And we'd go out there and we would practice. We'd shoot our guns and targets, and then we'd have target practice and stuff with them. And I got my gun I had, I was shooting I was hitting the target to my left, to my right every time I shot. I told him, the guy said, "Why you shoot at the target?" I said, "I've been shooting at the target." I said, "But I'm hitting the one on next door." He said, "Oh, it ain't no way." And so I said, "Here," I handed him it was a carbine I had. And I handed it to him. He got down and shot, and he done the same thing. He was shooting at his target and hit the target right. Now, the guys, you could see them jump when the thing hit over. They were down in a hole. And And so then I think I borrowed Max's carbine, and I finished my shooting. And then I think it was probably the next week they gave us all carbine, M1s, and that was best shooting. Now it was more true. You could hit the target with it. But the best thing I shot was a 50 caliber machine gun. Oh man, you'd only had about, I think, 10 rounds you could get up there and shoot. And I took the thing, I shot a little old tree down way off, and there was a barrel down there. So I aimed at that barrel and took it right across and just cut the barrel in two. And then, of course, I run out of bullets, and so I couldn't shoot them. But it was the best shooting gun that I got a hold of the whole time I was in the Army. My carbine was good, but I drove for forward observers, and they go out with the infantry. They go all out when they go out, and ahead of the company and all, and you go out and they would call the coordinates for the guns, and I drove for one, and we had three of them. And I drove, I don't remember who drove for the other two, but I drove for Lieutenant May. He was younger than I was, and he'd done been through, he graduated from college and then been in the Army training. He'd have been through all of that, and he could read a map. Boy, he could just put his finger on it. He'd just look at the map and he could put his finger right on it. I seen him walk up. There was a bunch of captains and majors and all standing there looking at a map, trying to find a spot. And he walked over and I said something to him, and they told him where it was at, what they were looking for. He said, "Here it is, right here." It was a little spot on the map, but he pointed his finger right to it. And because I know then he could read a map. And that's what we played war, had umpires. They would throw up a white flag every time you supposedly got shot or somebody, And I took him. I never did, but I got captured for one day, and they took all my maps but one, and they didn't find it because I had it under my seat, and they got all ones I had rolled up, and it happened to have the headquarters on it, so I could know how to get back, and this lieutenant said he wanted to drive my Jeep. Been raining for 2 days, and they called the convoy off. And so we had to go back, and where we was parked and had our camp set up, muddy. Oh man, it was the muddiest place I ever seen. And then here goes that lieutenant right down through the field and got my Jeep stuck up, and water was running all the way across the thing. It was going to sink, I thought. And he said, okay. He hopped out and walked through the mud to headquarters. And so I couldn't get it out. So I took and walked over to one of the boards there. I used to drive a ammo truck. They called it a deuce and a half, which was a ton and a half. But I went and got the big truck. He had a winch on the front. I pulled that winch down there, just was enough to hook my Jeep. And then I had him to winch me out. And now I got in the Jeep, and once I could tell I was getting some traction. I had it in four-wheel drive, and I put it in low. And boy, it finally hit solid enough to get out, boy, it took off. So I run over his cable. he was still pulling, but I went over the cable so I wouldn't hit it and cause him to jerk it out from under the Jeep or something. And but then I had to go wash it. And then you had to go down to the creek and do that with a bucket. And that thing, I had never seen so much mud. It was all under that thing. You could take the next day, I was even go out there and you would hit one of the running boards or something, and the mud would just flop right out. And it was a mess.
Well, thank you.
But-
Thank you for sharing. You shared
Probably end it, Dad. You might need to rest a bit.
Well,
Thank you. I mean, we can always come back another time and do some more.
well,
but
if I could remember anything else, because my mind ain't like it used to be.
Pretty good for 95.
Oh my
I'd say
goodness.
it's awesome.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
You
Thank
say
you.
he's got an awesome memory.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.